Welcome to our fifth event of Alumni Speak series. Today's event is specifically dedicated to CV and interview preparation. Um, some people would be joining in a couple of minutes, but we can start now. And I would like to firstly welcome Mausami Arora ma'am, Computer Science 2007 batch, uh, who has graciously agreed to be a speaker for the event. She comes with more than 12 years of experience in the field of HR and has successfully handled many areas and functions in different roles in different organizations. And I would now ask her to introduce herself. So, firstly, thank you so much, ma'am, for agreeing to be a speaker. And then I would let you introduce yourself, and then maybe you can also give an overview about your time at IET and your current experience, and also just a broad overview about the session today. So, over to you.
All right, thank you, Divyabh. First thing first, can you hear me? Well,
Yeah.
okay, wonderful. All right, so thank you so much, Divyabh, for your kind and warm welcome. And before I even begin about anything, I just wanted to extend a thanks to the organizing committee, the Alumni Association, for organizing a session like this, because reflecting back, these kind of sessions back then is what we were looking at for. And now I think the Alumni Association has made that happen. So it's exciting, and I'm really excited to be here and talk about my experiences and what value I can add to your lives at this stage of your career. A little bit about me. So I am computer science graduate from IET 2007, and I think I consider that time in IET as really important part in my career because those were the foundation years of my life, and I was really growing up and becoming confident as a budding professional and becoming ready for the corporate world. So I have my own, love for this campus and the time that I spent. And back in the days, I was pretty active student, both academically as well as, let's say, extracurriculars, as we say. So yeah, I mean, doing this session, having conversations with Divya in the last few days, I think those made me nostalgic about the times that I spent in IT back in the days. So yeah, good memories there, good confidence building back in the day helped me emerge as an individual that I am today. And today, what I really do is, of course, after my engineering, I pivoted my career in the HR field, did MBA in between, and now I'm with British American Tobacco, leading large-scale talent initiatives, really looking at reimagining the way we look at our talent, how we build the legacy of leaders. So my expertise lies in building those kind of leadership capabilities in the organization, as well as keeping it change ready all the time. So that's who I am, and that's where I am today in my career. Okay. And for today's session, as you all know, the topic is very self-explanatory, and I think one of the most sought after topic to really understand how do you as budding professionals make your CV attention worthy to get that most coveted first round of interview in the organization of your choice and eventually convert it. So let's get started. Divyap, is that okay? Do we get started now?
Yeah, and just to also give you all an overview, that both Master Ma'am and I spoke to a lot of the current students. We collected a lot of data. We also spoke to the placement coordinators. And our intention is to give you the right content, because CV preparation and interview tips, it's like a big topic. So our intention is just to give you the right content, focused content, so that you can use that in your I mean, in your application, both on campus and off campus. So also, before we start, I would also urge you all to probably message your friends and other people, because I'm sure this session would be very, very useful. and we are going to only do this session once on CV preparation interview tips. So though we know that the timing was a bit odd, because from the normal session point of view we have it at 9:30, but we are having it earlier. So there's still time. You can probably message your friends, and then if they want to make full use of it, it'll be good opportunity for them to also get some insights. We'll also be sharing some material meanwhile on the chat window, and they can also ask and like they can also ask the questions, and you can ask your question as well. So I think with this, ma'am, we can start.
Sure. Thank you so much, Divyabh. So guys, like Divyabh said, I think treat this session as an opportunity to unlock your thinking on, how you really get started on your CV preparation as well as interview preparation. You might be at different stages, in terms of where you are in terms of applying now. You might be a first year student, second year student, or a third or final year. So at trust me, at any stage of your career, you're going to need this kind of input to keep yourself ready all the time. I need this kind of reminder to myself even today if I'm really looking for a job or even applying for a role within my own organization. So treat this as an opportunity to just unlock your thinking on how differently you can look at the same thing versus what you were doing today. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. So I think, if I may assume, I think all of us in the call today are at least 20 years in age, and I'm sure each one of us have experienced a lot, achieved a lot, and we want to talk about all of that in our CV. And that's what it should be all about. It should be an opportunity for you to showcase who you are, what contribution you can bring to the table, and why the organization should be hiring you. So of course you want to talk about everything, and that's what a CV is a course of life. But again, what I want you to remember is the fact of life is, hey, the recruiter doesn't have time to really go through your life history on that page, one page or two page document. So how do you really grab their attention? And the attention that we are talking about here is not exceeding 30 seconds. Sometimes it's as small as 5 seconds, by the way. Yeah. When the recruiter has thousands of resumes to go through. So before I get into details of it, I just want all of us to take a step back and think like a recruiter for a moment. Like what's going on in their life? How do they see the CV when they receive something? So think of a recruiter. Let's say, let's empathize with this person. This person is somebody who is hiring for multiple positions at the same time. It's not just one position, yeah? On any given day, they have two to three or maybe more positions open. Every single position they are advertised on multiple channels. Now that we have LinkedIn, we have so many other professional platforms where people can drop in their resumes, employees directly reach out to HR, etc., various channels. So this recruiter is literally going through hundreds of resumes or CVs in a single day, right? So this person is busy. The keyword here is the person is busy. Then this recruiter is really hiring, let's say, for a backfill. Maybe somebody in the team has left and they're trying to hire somebody who can take on the load because the other person left. Or they are hiring because maybe there is a staff augmentation needed for a big project that is coming in and some new skills are required. Or they are simply hiring for a graduate program where the company has a certain profile in mind for a graduate to join in a certain leadership profile. So again, this person who is very busy also has an ideal profile in mind already. So then the question is, how do you make your resume stand out? Because we are talking about a span of 5 to 30 seconds where your resume should grab their attention, and then the resume should also speak to them for the profile that they have in mind, right? So this is the harsh reality that we have to really deal with. Now, if you really think of your resume as a sales document, and why I say sales document, because literally you are the product and recruiter is the customer, right? You are the product, you are selling yourself in the market, and recruiter is the customer who is going to buy your service or buy you as a product. So why should the customer be interested in the product that is you? Again, comes back to the same thing. Your resume is the first point of impression that will, land on the recruiter, and you have to make it work. So then, again, let's take a step back and think like a customer for a moment. Imagine when you went for the any last purchase that you would have done. I'll take my own example. I recently bought a mouse for my, workstation. And when I was looking for a mouse, I went online. Of course, I, browsed through catalog of mouses from various brands, various categories. Nothing was really catching my attention. And suddenly, poof, one particular product caught my attention. When that product caught my attention, only then I clicked on that product and read the features. Then I tried to understand, okay, these are the features. Is it really useful for me? I was looking for a solution for the mouse to be ergonomic, to be cost effective, to be blah blah. So I was looking for certain value, and my question was, is it really worth my time, investment, money? And at the same time, when I finalized or shortlisted few, I wanted to understand what's the recommendation from other customers, the reviews that are there available in the market. And that's how I made my call as a customer for a simple product like a mouse. And this is a typical customer behavior or a consumer behavior that happens when somebody's out there shopping for skills or talent or a product. And again, you have to remember this. You are that product, and hence your resume has to speak to that customer in the way that a product will speak to a customer at the end of the day. And if your resume today, and take a hard look at your resume, whatever it looks like today, if it talks only about you, as a product which has certain features, trust me, it's time you bin it, throw it away. What you really need to think about is the resume that is talking about you. Is it also talking about the value that you bring to the table? If it does not talk about that value, your contribution, your impact, forget about it. It's not going to get the attention in the market. There are too many people like us. Everybody's looking for the same job. You have to stand out. And hence the conversation that we will have today through the next few slides will focus on few specific things. What's the purpose of the CV really, right? The purpose of the CV is to get that coveted role in the organization of your choice. You are the product, you sell your features, you sell your benefits. It should line with the customer. So yeah, so the purpose of the CV has to be clear in your mind, first of all. Secondly, the content has to talk about the impact, your contribution, your value. And then let's say a layout. Is your CV readable today? If I open a document, do I get lost into, so many words, so many fonts, so many spelling mistakes, do I get lost? So that's the layout. So again, we will get into these details in the next few slides, but I hope you now get a sense of where exactly a recruiter comes from when we say the attention span is less than 30 seconds, right? So let's move to the next slide, please. So before we get into the nitty-gritties around how and what you should be mindful of, let's just look at the key elements that you should have in your CV. It's an absolute must, and you should include all these details. Of course, the number one is your personal contact information. So if somebody likes you, the product, they should be able to reach you. So your email address, your mobile number, that has to be on top of your resume, speaking to the customer. Okay, you can reach me here. On top of that, in today's era, LinkedIn and Twitter profile has become a very common thing. So don't forget to mention your digital footprint, which should, by the way, be updated at the same time. So your LinkedIn profile should be updated all the time. I think that's a vast topic in itself, and I think we will have to pick it up separately, but I just want to remind you that LinkedIn profile, please treat it seriously, update it today. Then comes your personal statement. Now, as graduates, this is critical for you to have it on your resume, because this is where you really speak to your potential employer that who you really are, what your motivation is about, and what is your career goal. And at the end of the day, what value you will bring to the table. Because imagine when somebody opens your resume, of course, your personal detail is the first thing. The very next thing, which occupies 1 to 2 inches on the resume, talks about your personal statement, your objective. And if it is not crafted properly, it's a waste of the space and the opportunity. It's a lost opportunity, I would say. Yeah. So we will just talk about maybe these things in the next few slides. Uh, Academic details versus calling it education, I'm calling it academic details because here it's an opportunity to talk about, were you any scholarship holder? That's an achievement, yeah? Were you a merit holder? Were you top ranker? So other than simply saying I'm a graduate or graduating soon, include your achievements as well. Maybe you're a winner in Olympiad. Think about every single achievement and it has to be there. Uh, for graduates, skill is again pertinent, and especially the jobs that we are applying these days or are hot, which are in the technology space, it's become all the more critical to clarify which skills are are part of your repertoire. Then for graduates, again, internships, academic projects, and extracurriculars. These are the opportunities where you get to show what was your position of responsibility, how did you lead a project, or how did you as a team member collaborate and contributed to a project, or how did you deal with any difficult situation when you were possibly leading a society or a club or an event while you were in the university or college or a school. So these are very, very critical and important sections in your resume, which will of course catch attention in the first instance, but will become the biggest talking point when you get that interview. So while resume should talk about what you achieved, your interview will talk about how you achieved. So the what has to be highlighted with the impact in the resume. And again, I will keep reiterating the word impact because this is what will give you that attention. If you don't write about that impact, again, it's a lost opportunity. And we will take a few examples to show you what we really mean by that impact. And graduates also sometimes grapple with the question that should we include our hobbies, should we include how many languages can we speak? Of course you can, but think about which job you're applying to and is it relevant to that job. So let's say if my interest is I like to run marathons, fine, good for you, go run, be active, but is it going to add value to the organization? Or can you, when somebody asks you, can you actually explain? If you can, please do it because that's your passion and you want to talk about it, and it might have certain linkages that you want to bring to the job that you're applying. If you write a food blog and you are applying to, let's say, a core company, is it relevant? But if you're applying to a food tech company and you write a food blog, then possibly it's very relevant. So again, need to think which blog has relevance to which job, which hobby has relevant to which job, and use it to your advantage. So that's the judgment call you will have to make for every single job application that you go for and work on your CV. So every CV needs to be tailored accordingly. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to next slide, please. So common mistakes in the layout. So if you recall in the beginning, I said layout and content are the two critical things in a CV, right? So layout has to be simple, effective, and it should speak to the person who is looking at your document for the first time. Very, very simple, pieces of information on the slide, but these are the big mistakes that happen in the CV. And as recruiters or as hiring managers, we see this and we really get frustrated, when we get CVs like these. So font size, if you keep it too small, it's very difficult for somebody to read. Nobody's going to take print out, read, spend time, change font size to suit their eyes. Keep a font size that is readable. If you use too much of verbose, lengthy statements, people get bored, people get lost. Cut it to declutter, make it bulleted, make it short, crisp statements. Um, Sometimes people try to bold and highlight and italicize the content, assuming they are bringing attention to the document. And it actually does wonders if you do it properly. But some people actually do, a bold highlight to the entire line. And then the whole documents look like a bolded document. It's very difficult to read at the end of the day. And this point around, running into multiple pages. So sometimes we waste a lot of space on the CV, and we tend to run into like 2, 3, 4 pages, while we may have a repetitive point to talk about or not very effective and impactful point to talk about. So you're using a lot of pages, you're wasting someone else's time, and you're not really getting your point across. So nothing is really working in your favor with an approach like that. Uh, yeah, and the last point, which is the white space. And I think I'll show you an example of what I mean by the white space and how you should be cognizant about how you should not be wasting the space. Let's move on, please. Right, so some other mistakes, from content perspective. Spelling mistakes, again, very, very commonsensical, but it's a problem. It is a problem in many resumes. So we make spelling mistakes like, winner. I have literally seen spelling, winner, WINER. It becomes a Wiener equivalent kind of word, right? So only so uh, be cautious, conscious about running those spell checks. Word has that feature, right? And once you have finalized your resume, try to take a printout of it, read it. You will find more mistakes. So proofreading is important online, as well as on a hard copy, offline copies, to make sure fundamental mistakes are not there. Then the use of tenses really go wrong sometimes. So simple example that you see is analyzing and designed, right? It has to be analyzed and designed, or I'm still analyzing and designing something. So figure it out what's going on with you. It could be either ways, right? But be conscious about what tense you're talking about. Uh, Again, poor usage of space. So you are saying the same things, that you were winner is something, you were finalist is something. Same thing, repetitive, 2008, 2009, 2006. Ever since I was born, I was just winning all the Olympiads. Just make it one line, from born till date. Simple. Too many acronyms. And so, for example, what you see a statement as project slate to conduct RCA resulting in 70% OEE. It's a big thing in one of the organizations that I worked. This is an example from my own work place. It's big thing, people understand, but if I were to talk about you, you'll be like, what the hell is this? Right? So context is important, and the recruiter who is looking at your resume doesn't share the same context. So don't assume, expand if something important is there. I mentioned about verbose statement and lack of real impact. So let's take this example. Let's read the statement in red. Created user form via VBA to allow easy data entry and minimize errors for weekly report. Okay, good for you. You created something to basically enhance user experience by removing something, but it's not really telling me what was your real contribution, what was the commercial value to the work that you did. Really, when I say the impact, it has commercial relevance to it. And if you would sort of try to reframe it, simply saying, yes, I used VBA to enhance user experience by eliminating errors which led to savings in terms of efforts or cost or some efficiency. That means you're commercially adding value in the team that you are working. The last point being undervaluing and underselling your contribution, and this is a very, very common mistake. Graduates too, I have done it myself, you know and we do it multiple times if we are not cognizant of it. And why this really happens is we don't use the right words. We're trying to say the same right thing, but the action verb that you use really makes that difference. So what you see here is, so let's say if I was a part of a committee, and I was not, let's say, a president of the committee, I was not the executive committee member of the committee, but I was one of the volunteers. And now I want to say, as a volunteer, I assisted in preparing certain logistics for something which brought some 500 students. I'm really undervaluing my work, because even as a volunteer, I spent so many hours to do something which would have brought some value to that event. So why not talk about it that way? And I'm just, a hypothetical reframing of the situation, simply saying I led or coordinated the logistics planning, for particular event, which might have saw the largest turnout, which might have saw attraction of X number of students from multiple universities. So again, you are qualifying that statement with the value that you brought, right? So that's the impact really that we are talking about.
Yeah, and just to add a point here, since ma'am you mentioned about the tenses and the spelling
Yeah.
mistakes, there are a lot of free websites or apps available. For example, one that comes to my mind is Grammarly.com. So it is free. Just type in Grammarly.com. I'll also put in the link in the chat window, and you can just put in your text. It will give you one, any spelling mistake, second, sentence usage things, also tenses and everything. So at least when you are having a formal thing such as a CV, do double checks. Sometimes we might miss out, or sometimes we may not be aware of the parallelism between analyzed and designed, right? So that's fine, no problem. But then when you're putting your face to the recruiter, he or she would be most likely be aware of these nuances, right? So just be aware of those things. I'll put in the link here. But good point, ma'am. Yeah, that's yeah.
All right. That's wonderful. Thanks, Divyabh. Let's move on, please. Okay, so now we have been talking about the impact. So how do you really go about, reflecting on the work you did, and how do you really articulate the whole thing? So this is my advice. This is how I personally work when I build my resume. This is how I have helped other graduates to think through when they're really looking at understanding how to really quantify. So, of course, you have to first of all spend some time, think what is the problem statement, or what was the problem that you actually solved. For example, in the previous example, this particular individual solved some problem which was about attracting people from different universities, let's say in a pandemic environment where on-site event management would have been a challenge. So the person might have thought of a virtual engagement approach and got so many people. So that was a problem statement. In a pandemic environment, how do I organize a technical fest? How do I organize a cultural fest? And while, for example, you did that, what did you really learn in that process? So, for example, if you were working on a project in any of your internships, what did you learn? What did you learn about the industry? Did you learn anything about working in teams? And now again, in the new world of work, if I may say, post the COVID impact, most of you must be working through virtual internships, virtual project. It's a new way of working for many of us, and especially for the graduates who are really starting in that environment. It's a different exposure. So what did you really pick up? How did you collaborate? How did you navigate those complex and ambiguous situations? So of course you have to reflect on that to get the what part of the statement. And then one click please, Divya. You also have to reflect even more on the contribution. Again, you had a problem statement. How did you solve it? What were the recommendations you made? If it was a project, if it was an internship, and were your recommendations implemented? And these are critical things to think about and literally write it down somewhere before you start, making crisp statements, because this will really showcase to the hiring manager or the recruiter your ability to think through a problem. How do you solve problems? If you made recommendations, it will show that how you applied your learnings and what innovative solutions you would have thought of, and whatever ideas, suggestions you might have given. And of course, if something got implemented, write it in your resume, because that will show the quality of your work, because that is a commercially relevant solution that you would have recommended, which got implemented. So that's the way you need to break it down and think, what was your contribution? And again, what was the impact? What is that commercial impact? And I will keep on reminding you, impact. And when it comes to internships, think about commercial impact. When it comes to academic projects, think about how did you optimize, how did you re-engineer something. When it's about extracurriculars, your impact could be on multiple dimensions. So if you could click again, please. So we tend to, participate in multiple events, or on campuses, etc. And sometimes we, innovate. We come up with new ideas. So, for example, the statement in red that you see: design a marketing pitch for the new coding club. It's a good thing that somebody would have done, but it's not telling me really what happened. Okay, something happened, but what was the outcome? What was the impact? However, if you qualify it further, saying I designed that pitch, which ensure that we were able to secure cash sponsorship of certain amount from Fortune 500 companies. Suddenly it has a certain weight to your statement, certain impact, because now this catches my attention. So this is what I mean, quantify your impact. Okay, let's move on, please. So let's take a very quick look at some of the CVs. By the way, these are some of the CVs from Singapore graduate environment, and you will be surprised. It's not different from what you have even in India. It's same set of sections, similar way of writing. So I just wanted to bring that flavor to you as well, that globally all graduates grapple through similar challenges. And it's just a matter of how you project your contribution that will help you stand out. So here I have, of course, blacked out some of the personal details. But if you look at this two-pager CV document, there are a few things that don't seem right. So let's do a click, please. So first thing first, you will see there are a lot of white spaces, and I've just highlighted those white spaces. So it's there's certain text, divided into two pages, a white space, a white waste space. There is no photo, there is nothing that is catching my attention. It's very bland looking document. Something is written. Okay, fine. If I have time, I'll go through it. Otherwise, I'll just trash it. It's a document like that. Next slide, please. And on the point number 2, which is page number missing. So see, these are silly mistakes, I would say. On the second document on the right, you will see page number 2, but on the first screenshot, there is no page number. Silly mistake, but it is a mistake, and somebody who is critically evaluating your document will pick up these things. And this shows that you are not serious about the job. That's the message somebody gets. Then some of the statements on the right, I think the text is too small, but these are very lengthy, long statements. For example, in the middle section of the document, there's a statement called facilitated a number of club events as a subcommittee member. So fine, somebody was active enough to do a lot of things, but there is no impact. So it doesn't really catch my attention. So I will just move on as a recruiter. Similarly, the last part, which is additional information. Now, this individual has talked about languages, proficiency in Microsoft Office, but it's like too much of text. I get lost unless I really spend time to look into what the person is trying to say. And that's why we say it's verbose, no impact. Okay. So this is an example which is not good. So your CV should not look like this. Next slide, please. Let's take a couple more examples. Again, I'm talking in terms of the content and layout again. So in this example, again, text is a bit small, but here the content is good. If we really get into, every single line item. For example, under awards and achievement, which is in the bottom section of this document, this person has mentioned that the person was in the top 15 percentile. So it gives me a reference point as a recruiter that, oh, good, okay, it's somebody, academically strong individual. So that's good, a call out there. But the layout, it's all over the place. It's too much of text, no differentiation, you get lost. So again, good job on the content, but layout really needs cleanup. Next slide, please. This example on the right, again, here the layout is very clean. It looks, you can understand the broader sections here, education, internship experience, curricular activities. Sections are clear. But the text, if you get into details, it's very, very surface top level. Again, doesn't talk about impact. So the flavor that I'm trying to share here with you is, see, there are thousands of layouts and formats available. So idea of this conversation is not to land a format, because there's an infographic format, there is this format, there's a colorful format. Choose a format that works for you, really. But the content has to have that impact, and the layout has to make it readable. So that is the crux of the matter. And you need help from others as well to help you review the document, and I'll talk about it in the next few slides where you should seek out help. The next one. So let's talk about, we are all engineers here, right? What we understand is logic and algo. So let's position it that way. How do you really go about building your CV? So my suggestion is, start with creating a master CV, which should be a life story, what we talked about in the beginning. It should tell everything about what you have achieved, what you have done, and it's all okay to include in the document. Take 1 to 2 weeks time to really reflect, think. Then take another week's time to try to trim it down to 1 to 2 pages, because that's where you start molding that document into a sales document, which is relevant to the job you are applying, relevant to the customer who is going to review your resume. So that needs time. And once you have trimmed it down, try to run that document by your buddy here, meaning your batchmates, your friends, your mentors, your seniors, alumni. So run that document by people who can critically evaluate what you have put in the document and give you real feedback to make it impactful and relevant. Take some time to absorb that feedback, embed it, recraft the document, and again run through the document with the similar group of helpful people, if I may put it, and then try to finalize your document by having all those feedback inbuilt. What this will really do is you would have taken feedback from different people would have given critical evaluation of the situation, what you are trying to showcase, and they can tell you whether you are being the product who is sellable enough in the market or not. And that's what you're trying to achieve. So I think if there could be an algo, this is what it would look like. This is something that I think I was talking to Divyabh. Divyabh also had a similar approach when he was working through a document like this. I personally followed this approach. So far, it has worked for us, and give it a try. Hopefully, it should help you as well. And a great news that I am very excited to share is that again, Alumni Association, what they have done is what we are basically trying to do is provide you an opportunity to get your CV reviewed by alumni, right? Provided you upload your resume on the IET portal, the alumni portal. And there we will spend time, between me and the rest of the alumni, we will spend time to go through your document, give you real feedback of how to make it relevant, provided you upload your resume. So I think, Divya, please do share the link to the same in
Sure.
the chat
The link is
box, and
shared.
guys, take time to go through it. Yeah.
Yeah, the link is already shared. Yeah. So,
Oh, great. Okay. Next slide, please. Right. So this is all about the CV that we talked about. And once you have become the product which is sellable enough in the market, I'm confident that you would have gotten grabbed the attention of the recruiter, and the recruiter would have selected your resume for the first round of interview. Then the question is, are you ready for that now? What have you done to prepare yourself? Are you ready to have that conversation? And that's what I think now we want to talk about in the next segment of this conversation. Divya, do you want me to carry on, or are there any questions that we can take now?
yeah, I mean, probably we can wrap it up first, and then we can
Sure.
open the round for questions.
Fair enough. Okay, okay. So, guys, I'm making Divya work a lot with me, and he has helped me a lot in doing the research and working through on this presentation to curate the content that works for you. So he will also help me in this next segment to do some role play. So get ready, Divya. Coming to it very soon. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So when it comes to interviews, there are many types of interviews that you might have heard of, you might come across, but I would like to categorize into just simply three buckets. One is technical, which literally tests your functional expertise, functional skill sets. And then comes the behavior and situational interview questions, which are testing two things. One, are you culturally fit for the organization? Second, do you have that leadership profile that the company is looking for as per their philosophy? And when I say leader, I'm not referring to just the general management kind of leadership, but I'm also referring to in the technical world, are you ready to lead? So that leadership, which is generic, is what gets tested to this behavioral and situational interview questions. Now, focus for today would be the latter, which is the leadership and the culture fit related questions. And we will use this time to guide you through a framework how you can prepare yourself to provide examples which are well thought through and logically presented for your interviewer to understand and appreciate your contributions. The technical side of the story would be part of the next conversation with Divyabh and the team will be organizing. And we have connected with a lot of alumni who have done good in securing the jobs of their choice, and they will share their experiences from technical aspects, how to really prepare for coding tests, be it online, on-site, off-site, virtual, whichever. So they will share their experiences. Some of the technical questions are also in the form of case studies. So it depends which organization you're applying for, whether it's a product organization, IT organization, or a core company. The approach will vary, but that will all be focused on your core subjects. Yeah. Okay. So before I move on to the star framework, really, I just wanted to take a pause here and really pick on that most dreadful questions that all of us are scared of, and that is, tell me about yourself. Now, any interview, whichever shape and form it is, group interview, one-to-one interview, or behavioral, technical, whatever, it always starts with tell me about yourself. And that is one question that really makes or breaks your performance in the interview, because your interviewer would have already formed perceptions and impressions on you. So let's take an example with Divyabh's help. Let's do one example of what a bad tell me about yourself would look like. All right. Okay, Divyabh, over to you, please. Very happy to go through your resume. Found you very, very interesting, and I would love to know about you. So tell me about yourself.
Sure. Uh, so uh, my name is Divyabh Tyagi. I was born in Ghaziabad. I did my schooling from Delhi Public School, Ghaziabad, um, and I was a topper in my 10th and 12th um, classes. Then I joined mechanical engineering at IET Lucknow, and currently I'm in my final year. I love running, listening to music. I also do theater. I'm very strong in subjects like applied thermodynamics and IC engines, and those subjects are my passion actually. I have done some internships and also academic project at IIT. Uh, I believe I will be a very valuable asset to your organization, and I'm really looking forward to working with you if you select me. Thank you.
Thank you, Divya. All right. So before Divya goes on to the next leg of the roof play, which is a good example, let me just evaluate what really happened. Uh, Now, I don't think we have much time, but I would have really, spent some time to get your inputs on how you found this response. But if I may critically evaluate quickly, so this was a response which had a lot of information, good information, but all over the place. And honestly, I don't remember anything. So if I'm an interviewer and I want to, let's say, follow through on any of the points, I really don't know, and I'm not excited about asking anything because this individual in front of me has seems to have done few things, is passionate about something, but I really don't remember anything. And what was the impact? I have no idea. So I have made my impression already that this person is okay, but I'm not very sure. So this is how, as a hiring manager, I would think for a response like this. So now let's try to do a role play on what a good looks like for a question like this. So Divya, please tell me about yourself.
Sure. I'm a final year student majoring in mechanical engineering. My deep interest lies in applied thermodynamics and IC engines, and these are the subjects I'm very passionate about. In my most recent internship at Tata Motors, I worked in the commercial vehicles division working on vendor quality management, leading to an improvement of vendor quality by 12%. In my academic project, I worked on desiccant cooling systems where I applied my knowledge of applied thermodynamics and achieved an overall efficiency of 12% as well. I'm very passionate about theater. I'm a part of the college's theater society called IIT Josh and have performed at various colleges and won various awards as well. In terms of giving back to society, I teach underprivileged students English language at school in Lucknow. I'm really looking forward to working with you, and I believe my sound mechanical core background and my passion for technology would hold me in good stead when I'm working as a program manager in your organization. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So that really response deserves a round of applause, guys. I wish we were, talking this on site and together somewhere. So what really happened in this example? So this individual sounds confident, is clear about what this person wants and how this person is bringing the impact. Even when the person talks about passion, which is theater, the person is talking about how it is related to the contributions in the campus that the individual has been doing, right? Through committee, etc. The internship experience, when it was talked about, it was related to favorite subject as well as the contribution made in terms of efficiencies brought and the commercial value brought to the organization. Fantastic response. And this is a kind of response you have to work towards, right? And I think we can share these good and bad examples in the chat box or later, Divya, for people to really think through and spend time to work on this question, because this really makes and breaks, right, the entire conversation that we get into. So thank you, Divya, for being spot on that.
Yeah, no worries.
Cool.
Thanks.
All right, now coming to the behavior and situation question. So how you really break down these two areas is a behavioral set of question is a question that deals with your past experience or a past situation. Meaning to say, if a question comes to you saying, tell me about a time when you handled a difficult conversation, when you handled a conflict, when you handled a challenging situation. A question like this, what the recruiter or the hiring manager is expecting you to talk about is think about a situation from your extracurriculars, from your projects, from your internship, or even during your childhood days, to think what was the situation, talk about it in terms of what you really did in that situation, what were your actions, and what was the outcome. So they are really looking for an answer like this, and they want you to think of an example. Now if you're not prepared for something like this, you will come up with some example which might not land impactfully, and after the interview, you would be like, oh shit, I should have talked about my some other experience. What a lost opportunity. You don't want to be there, right? So you need to prepare. Situational questions are more to do with hypothetical situations, which, for example, if let's say somebody is hiring in their team for a role and they just want to understand if they were to hire you, how would you behave in that environment? So a question would be, what would you do if you're assigned a task that you have never done before? So you are a graduate, you have not really worked in a corporate environment, you will be put in a new team. How will you behave? Suddenly, they might add an element to this question saying you won't have any, team member to support you in your first few days when you join us, but you will be put on a critical project. What would be your approach? So how would you answer that? So those kind of questions require you to think about yourself, your style of working, because that's literally what you will answer in that situation. You can't predict a kind of question that will be asked, but you can always prepare yourself with a standard set of questions that get asked and use those answers and thought processes when answering any questions in an interview. Okay, let's move on, please. Now, this is one tip or one guidance I would really like to share with all of you. And this approach of preparing from for the interviews comes from a very experienced educator with whom I had worked in the past when I was preparing for my MBA. So I will be very honest. When I graduated from IET, I mean I was prepared for interviews, but not to the extent that you are supposed to be prepared. The kind of points that I'm sharing today, honestly, as a graduate, I had no idea, and I'll be honest about it. And this educator back then had shared these nuggets with me, which have stayed with me till date and helped me even today. This person asked me to really write my autobiography. He asked me to spend a month just to think about myself, right from the day I was born, whatever I can remember, talk to my family members, ask them their feedback of what they think is good about me or what is not so good about me. Um, think about what experiences shaped me, who I am, what kind of values I have, identified in myself. Uh, think of every single achievement, learning moment, etc., and literally write everything in a journal form with no structure or any format in mind. Just write everything. And I share one example. So while I was building this journal, one of the experience in my life when I was in class second, I guess, um, for the first time I was going to participate in a running, like a 100-meter sprint. uh, and I had never run before, but I was really good at running, and that was a surprise to me myself when I ran the race. And I actually did well. I was the first in the race, but I didn't get the first prize because I was disqualified. And why I was disqualified? Because I didn't know the rules that I have to, stay slightly behind the start line before I start, or I don't have to cross certain line, before a certain point. I didn't know the rules, and I, even though I won, I did not win. And that is one of the instances that had stayed with me till now and has impacted the way I discipline myself. So I'm very conscious about the rules. I want to be aware. I don't want to make silly mistakes to miss on big things. And this kind of example I can share today because I have spent that time in the past to write that journal. And these examples help me answer any kind of interview question, not just for the job, but any engagements I do with graduates, my family members, anyone, just to share about my values. And I'm clear about it now. So that's what I'm talking about. So spend that time to literally write everything. And even today, I have that document with me. And when I'm preparing for any big conversation, I do refer, back to see what did I say back then? Is it still true? And how is it? And I keep on building on that document. So that's something that you should do. And with once you have done that, you will find you will have a lot of examples to talk about in any kind of behavioral question. So what we have done is we have created a handbook for you. Divya will share it with you guys. You will find many types of questions that we have put together. For example, how do you deal a situation of conflict? How do you what is that big thing that has happened in your life that would have impacted your personality? Those kind of questions, try to answer with these examples from your journal, from your autobiography. And when you are writing those answers, we want you to do it in a certain way. And that certain way is being logical about it, being the true engineers that we all are. Apply a framework, which we call STAR. Next slide, please. And the STAR framework is simple. It's simply saying when you talk about any example, start with the situation. Give the person in front of you the context. What are you really talking about? The context setting is important. Then comes the problem statement. What was it that you really did? How did you do it? What all actions that you took to reach the objective, and what was the final outcome? So again, like Divya mentioned in his introduction in Tell Me About Yourself question, he talked about achieving certain efficiencies. That's an outcome, right? Uh, so you have to be very conscious about these things to apply frameworks like these. Yeah. If you move on, please. And always you need to remember, interview is a conversation. It's not a Q&A. It's not an interrogation. Nobody is going to kill you in the room. So first of all, believe that it's going to be a conversation, and to be ready to have the conversation, you need to prepare. Any famous personality that we know gives that awesome speech. They even spend time to prepare for that speech. So we also need to do that. And some of the quick tips that I would like to share is, again, use if you could follow that approach of building that autobiography, that would be your starting point. Use the handbook that we shared today to write examples, apply the star format, which is very straightforward. And then the biggest differentiator for you would be practicing in groups with your friends. And that's the best way to practice. Ask these tell me about yourself kind of questions, and then ask your friend to evaluate that answer for you in the staff framework. Give mock interviews. There are many opportunities. Again, use your seniors, alumni to help you practice. The more you practice, the more you're ready for the conversation. And that's how you would be ready for that very, very important conversation across multiple rounds of interviews that you're going to go through. But please do practice. Yeah. All right, so that's all I wanted to talk about in terms of the tools, tip, trick, whatever you may call it. But these are some of the experiences that I have gained over the last few years and that have really served well for me and a lot of my friends. So hopefully that should help you as well while you prepare for any interviews um, for any organization.
Great. Thank you so much, ma'am. That was very, very exhaustive, and I'm pretty sure the valuable tips that you shared would be pretty much useful for the current students, and like not only when they're applying for on-campus jobs, but also for off-campus jobs like applying to Google, Amazon, etc. Because what we plan for this session is um, not just focused on like the type of questions or the type of situation that you might face in the companies that come to the campus, I mean like in the interviews for those companies, but also we spoke to some of the people who are currently working at Amazon or Google, HUL, and we collected the questions and also tried to address it in the presentation. And the document that we have shared, that has two sections. One is the general section, questions like tell me something about yourself, your strengths, weakness, etc., etc. And the other are the behavioral or like the situational type questions, like tell me about an instance when you achieved this, or when you led a team, or when you managed conflict, etc. Go through those, and like ma'am explained, make a journal from I mean for those questions. We all have gone through the same phase as you all are currently in, and believe me, if you follow the process, you will learn faster and you'll be able to implement it faster. And the industry, like the HRs and the other interviewers, they expect that because they know these kind of things. So the better you are at these things, the better it will be for for your chances. Ma'am, so we are at the end of the hour. I think the conversation was like so exhaustive and so nice that we are at the end of the hour. But would it be possible for you to extend by like 10-15 minutes in case there are some questions that people might have, if that's fine for you?
Yeah, sure. Good with me. Yeah.
Thanks. So, firstly, I would like to open for live questions. We have some questions on Slido, but it would be great to first, I mean, like, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask any question that you feel you need clarification on. And don't be shy. I mean, it's just like a very informal like platform, and use this opportunity to clear your doubts. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, man.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am. So my
Hi.
question is regarding that how do we tackle situations when there is virtual interview where we are supposed to record a video and send to them, and we don't have any interviewers with whom we can maintain eye contact or communicate properly. So any tips for that?
Sure. Thanks for the question, Aman. Aman, good question. And this is becoming more and more, the way interviews are being conducted for graduates specifically. I think, see, the fundamental premise remains the same. The questions typically are similar set of questions. Tell me about yourself, difficult, situation, a conflict, the questions are going to be the same. How you address those questions is in how logical you can be and how clear you can be. And again, I'll go back to the star framework. if you can answer your questions in that format, giving the situation, giving the context, talking about the outcome, that pretty much lands well on that interview as well. Because what's really happening is, instead of a person asking you that question live, you have been given the question, you have been asked to find out a time that works for you and record your response. And some organizations also provide you opportunity to practice your response on the platform itself before you submit your final response. So you should utilize those options to practice till you are comfortable with the response, and then you just hit the submit button. And goes without saying, the basics in terms of making sure the aesthetics of the room are well taken care of. Basically, even lighting on your face, the clothes that you wear, the background that you have, basics, get it right.
Yeah, and just to add, so I faced a lot of these virtual interviews, and I would like to recommend, if you go to Amazon's website, or if you just type, Google Amazon's tips for virtual interviews, you will find a lot of interesting articles and also YouTube links. I've shared one in the chat window because over the last 1.5 years, and still Amazon is having virtual interviews, and they, when they interview someone, they give, they give very much a good guidance on the star framework. So you can also search that on Amazon's website, and they also tell you the tips for the virtual interviews, right? So use that, and like ma'am mentioned, just have a so when it's virtual, it becomes all the more important to do things more like you used to do before. So in a face-to-face setting, things may be different, but in a virtual setting, you also have to look at how you look, what is the camera angle, position. Sometimes we use the camera like this, it's like it's projecting upwards. Sometimes we do it like this, it's projecting downwards. So there's a proper like fit. Your face has to fit properly. It shouldn't be too close or too far. So there are a lot of these aspects, and believe me, just do some Google research and go to Amazon website, etc., and you will get a lot of these important information. Yeah, but good question, Aman. Yeah, cool.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, any more live questions? I have some on the chat window. In the chat window. So Rohit asked, ma'am, what are the points we must keep in mind while creating resume for applying to internship in any organization or company?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think we already have a response from our team. Uh, but broadly, again, the sections remain the same. The only difference is, let's say if you're applying for the internship for the first time, and you really don't have corporate experience to talk about, then the focus really goes on the academic projects and the extracurriculars. So your CV has to occupy more space on that. Secondly, also on the personal statement, because in that personal statement, versus talking about the commercial value that you would have already brought through an internship, which did not happen, you have to basically focus on the statement saying, these are the kind of skills you have, this is your deep expertise area, or this is your interest area, and you want to build your career in that, or you want to grow yourself in that area. And on those lines, your personal statement has to be crafted.
Yeah, and perfect. And just to add a point here, so when you are applying for internship, like ma'am mentioned, your academic projects play a very important role. Also, let's say you are applying to an automotive firm, for example, Tata Motors, and just to show that interest, if you have something, if you've participated in some competition related to robotics, or maybe some competition organized by SAE, which is the Society for Automotive Engineers, because I think some of the people in your in I think 2022 batch, they also had some competition regarding that. So try to also showcase those aspects, show relevance, right? Show how you would stand out from others. And the only thought of it, trust me, if you only think about it, definitely you will put in some content in your CV to make yourself relevant. Just the simple step. would make you stand far apart from others, because 80% of the people, they don't think about these aspects. Why? Because they're fresh out of college, and I mean, like, so these things may not be coming naturally for people. But like, the tips that you got from the session, would, like, just apply to, I mean, apply those tips and make yourself stand out and relevant when you're applying for that internship. Then, yeah, we have one question, Rohit. Okay, so yeah, Rohit, that was a good question. Any other live questions before we take up some questions on Slido? Okay, so Shivam sir, if you could zoom in a bit. Yeah. So there are a lot of questions, and some of these questions have already been answered in our content. But what are the key points of consideration when an HR screens the CV? The whole session was about that. Should I write my date of birth and other personal details in the resume? I think yes, ma'am. Or what do
No,
you think?
I would say
Depends.
date of birth is not required. So,
Yeah.
so personal details, I think you should limit it to your phone
The date
number
of. Okay.
and
Yeah.
the email address, or let's say
Yeah.
LinkedIn or Twitter profile. So, yeah,
Perfect.
date of birth cannot be a qualifying criteria for any job.
Exactly. Perfect. In addition to resume, how can I differentiate myself with cover letter? Do I need to have a separate cover letter for different jobs?
That's a great point. Having a cover letter, and a lot of us don't do that. In some cases it works, in some cases it don't. But if you have a cover letter, it definitely differentiates you, and it has to be so like a CV. Like we said, CV has to be tailored to the role. Letter equally has to be tailored to the role. And one thing you need to make sure, your cover letter and the personal statement should have different text. Do not copy paste. That's a common mistake we tend to do. We either copy paste from cover letter to the personal statement or vice versa. So these are two different kind of documents, so we have to be conscious about that. So again, if you do Google search, you'll find a lot of formats, a lot of content on how to draft it. But yes, please tailor it for sure.
Perfect. Then sorry, sometimes we don't know the companies if we apply through recruiters. How can we create a resume which is neutral and can work number of jobs in my area? So, like
Okay.
regarding this, I think the recruiters sometimes they also have some specialization that they're looking to hire for technology companies, or they're looking to hire for mechanical companies. So maybe I think people can tailor their resume according to that. Ma'am, please add. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, precisely. And if I go back to the algo that we talked about, so we said, creating that master CV. So that master CV, which is running into 4 to 5 pages, might have. So, for example, you are from mechanical branch, but you're really good in programming and you are very, very much interested in, technology space. So you have two different aspects in your life already parallelly running. So when you are applying for a core company job, if you talk about Python and coding skill, I don't think that's relevant for the job you're applying. However, if you're applying as a mechanical graduate to, let's say, any tech giant, and you're talking about those aspects, that's relevant. So that's how you tailor your CV with the content that you have. So that's how your neutral
Yeah.
CV is your master CV, but your actual sales document is tailored to the job.
Yeah, and this was exactly what was taught to me by my career center when I was studying at HEC Paris and also at IMT Ghaziabad. And I think, ma'am, the same would probably hold true when you are
Sure.
studying at Excel, right? So
Yeah.
this is actually a very, very good strategy, which personally speaking, I did not know when I was at IET, right? So now since you know it, try to implement it. Have a two-pager master CV or maybe a 2.5 pager, no worries. But then have it so that you can pick and choose from it and make it specific to different roles. Good. I believe number of companies use bots for or non-technical people to shortlist the resume. How can we use keywords to effectively get shortlisted?
So you have sort of answered your question yourself. So the magic is in the word keywords. So if you're applying, so let's say if you're applying for a off-campus job, there you really know the job description and you know what they're looking for. So question is, have you search optimized your CV on that? Are those keywords reflecting in your resume or not? And that's literally what they're going to look at. So the skills segment becomes hypercritical in this situation, you know. So that's how you optimize your CV on the keywords.
Yeah, good point. Is there something called too much information in the resume? How can I make sure that I'm not putting too much or not needed information?
I think this is very contextual. So too much information in the resume for me is a non-contextual, non-impactful document. I'll just go back to the same thing. So if you have a lot of, let's say you're talking about an academic project and you have written 7 statements explaining that academic project, but it is not really explaining what impact it brought. It becomes too much information, if you understand what I mean. Similarly, additional information. You put a lot of hobbies. I love cooking. I like dog walking. Like running. But is it relevant to the job you're applying? So that definitely too much information.
Yeah, good. And you mentioned that impact is important, but I'm looking for internship uh, or a fresher job, and only thing I can show is my academics. How to format my resume? We partially
So
answered that, but yeah,
yeah,
please.
yeah. So I think again, the point is yes, you can show your academics, and from academics perspective, what are you really showing? So let's say if you were, top of the class, or you were top in percentile. So it also is about how you're articulating. You may not be rank one, but were you in top 10 percentile, top 15 percentile, in top 20 percentile? You can articulate the same thing like that versus saying, oh, I ranked 20 in a batch of 110. So what was your percentile really? Position it that way. Were you merit scholarship holder? Were you any kind of scholarship holder? That's academic. And then comes the extracurriculars. And one thing I will recommend, if for whatever reason you were never part of a committee in the school or in the college as in a leadership role, think of creating one. Why can't you just organize an event and talk about it, and it will be with you forever in your resume that you would have done something innovative. So again, Divya mentioned this in one of as an answer to one of the questions. You will have to come up with so the moment you start thinking on those lines that you need to put something in the CV, you will start thinking of the things that you can put, and it's like a chicken and egg. The more you think I want to put, the more you will make it happen. If you don't think, you will never know.
Yeah, and just a quick fix to this is, suppose, so what I used to do, what I still have, in fact, in my CV regarding when I talk about IET Lucknow. So I got a rank of 870 something, and I just found out that in 2000, so I entered in 2005. So in 2005, how many students did take the UPTU exam? Right? And I kind of got a ballpark figure of about two, 2.5 lakh or something, right? So a simple thing is just divide your rank um, by the total number of students. That will give you, I mean, that you can say that I was in the top 1% or top something percent, and that just adds a lot of value. Why? Because the recruiter, so I mean, when I'm applying here, let's say to global companies, they don't know what IIT Lucknow is or what UPTU is, but what they know is that okay, this person was in the top 0.9% of the total number of applicants. And you can also mention globally, because some people might also apply from outside India to I mean, like to I mean, for different programs at IT. So feel free to use these kind of things, and like the percentile thing is a very important aspect, and try to sell yourself, right? I mean, we undersell quite a lot, but try to not oversell, but at least whatever you have, at least put it on the CV, right? Yeah, so that's just a quick fix that you all can do. Just try to find out how many people participated in the UPTU, and I'm pretty sure you all have nice ranks since you are from IT. But yeah, that's just one way that, yeah, I thought I'll share.
Oh, that's a great comment, Divya. Thanks.
Yeah, and okay, finally, it's already 2 minutes above, but still, if there's one final live question, or I'm just looking at chat.
There is one question that Satyam
Ah,
asked,
yeah.
and we can let Mosmi take a
Sure.
stab at that.
During
So,
interview, if we don't know answer of particular questions, then we can attract the interviewer to those si- to to that side which I know properly it's good or not. So okay, so you are saying that you are trying to dodge the interviewer. If you don't know the answer to any particular question, you can kind of steer it to another thing that you know. So yeah, so I'll let Mausami answer this. But it's a good question.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think it depends on what really is. Um, do you really want to just toss the question and deflect it in a different direction, or do you really want to say, I don't know? My suggestion would be not to say things that you don't know and not to say things which are not true. So be true and authentic in that conversation. If you don't know something, just simply say that's not an area that I'm prepared for to talk today, or that's not a subject that's where my deep interest lies. Would you be okay if we talk more about, let's say, data structures, maybe C++? I don't know Java, but I know, just an example. So if you are true and authentic in that conversation, it actually lands a good message to the interviewer that you're confident, you know yourself, and you're ready to talk about the subjects that you are good in.
Yeah, and just to add a point to what ma'am said, yeah, so like definitely you shouldn't say I don't know, but what you can say also is that um, that okay, I am not aware of this aspect now, but I would be happy to I mean, but I would be happy to research more on this and maybe get back to you offline over an email or something if that works for you. So that kind of shows that, okay, this person, it's fine that this person doesn't know the answer to, let's say, a question in fluid mechanics, but still he is eager to say that, okay, I will learn, I will get back to you with the right answer. So that also you can convert your lack of knowledge into your strength. So that's just one idea. Good. Okay. I think so. Yeah, we are almost. Yeah, we are 20 minutes over time. So thank you, Mausami ma'am, for the overall session first, and also for this extension. I know it would be pretty late in Singapore, and but thanks a lot for the time today. And in the end, I would also like to say that Shivam sir has already shared the link of the resume builder. So I would urge each one of you to use the session and share your resume on the link that Shivam sir already shared. We are in the process of getting your CV reviewed then, like through a mechanism from the alumni and to give you feedback. But just be more participative in this initiative because it's going to help you guys. And I know that currently there are no such workshops or sessions organized for the students related to CV and interview prep. So I think when such a session is organized, yeah, I mean, I think the session is for your interest only. So just use the tips that you got from the session. We'll be sharing a video recording as well, and then use this resume builder platform.